Hello everyone, my name is Kelly Johnson and I'm a Curriculum Officer at NCFE. You're very welcome to this webinar for online teaching tools for the V Cert Technical Award qualifications. Before we start, there is a session participant handbook in the handout section, so please feel free to download it. It provides information about this session, helps you prepare for it, guides you through the session and enables you to record your ideas and/or comments throughout the session. There is a question I'd like to consider just before we get started in this CPD session, and it's to ensure that your time is of maximum benefit and it is highlighted in yellow in the participant handbook. However, if you haven't downloaded it and don't want to, that's absolutely fine, but please just consider the questions that you would like to ask or discover answers to in this session. So the purpose of this webinar is to explore some of the online tools and applications that are available and how they could be used to assist with the delivery and assessment of the V Cert Technical Award qualifications. There will be an overview of some of the available online tools and applications, and these will include Mentimeter, Google Forms, Insert Learning, Padlet, FakeTextcom, and Vidyard. There will also be the opportunity to openly discuss these online tools and applications and how they can be embedded into your teaching practices to improve learner achievement. Furthermore, there will be other opportunities to also ask any questions that you may have. For your information, we are also running a webinar on teaching strategies and more tips on preparing to teach in 2021-22, and we'll share the booking details with you soon. Please also feel free to pop any questions that you may have into the question box throughout the webinar. Okay, so now we're going to look at some useful and free online tools that are available out there and how they could be used in your teaching practice. The first one is the website Mentimeter.com. It is an interactive and online presentation software program and it's free, but there are some limitations with the free version. Mentimeter can be used in real-time classwork and live remote lessons. And the interactive element allows questions to be submitted, quizzes to be taken, and much more. You can make an unlimited number of presentations, but in a single presentation, there is a maximum of 2 questions and a maximum of 5 quizzes per presentation. The questions can be submitted anonymously, and there is also a profanity filter too. Microsoft PowerPoint has an add-in that allows you to insert Mentimeter slides into your presentation, but if your centre has restrictions on that, then there are some other ways of inserting it. Mentimeter can be used with any of our V Cert subject areas for exam revision and quick recap or review quizzes. And one of my favourites was having my health and fitness quiz ready for the learners to complete as an entry or a starter activity. Also, it could be used in interactive media, where learners must either identify or rank the features of an interactive media product. The open-ended question type could be used in graphic design, where learners are asked to describe the components of graphic design, or in art and design, where learners are asked to describe the art movement of cubism. One way that you can access your created Mentimeter is going to Mentimeter.com and entering the auto-generated code, which on this slide is represented by XXX. The limitation with this method, though, is the code is only valid for a maximum of 7 days with the free version, and with the paid version, it's valid for 14 days. Another way is to put the web address with the character string, which doesn't expire. And probably the easiest method, and the one that's most popular with learners, is to scan the QR code with your smart camera, which also doesn't expire. During the course of lockdown and home learning, I'm sure many of you may have become familiar with Google Docs and Google Forms. I'm now going to go through one way of using it to create quizzes or even homework. And when you start a new form, you can choose what type it is from multiple choice, checkbox, drop-down menu, and more. And if you click on the settings icon, you can choose to make it a quiz, whether they see their results immediately or later, and whether they can see the correct answer, and so on. One option for health and fitness is to use the end of topic quizzes and copy it into the form and select the correct answer. And as feedback is vital for learner achievement, you can add feedback to the quiz. And this will allow you to add feedback for incorrect answers as well as the correct answer. You could have learners include links to websites for the learners who get the answer incorrect. This would then increase the number of digital skills the learners are using, as they would have to ensure they are linking to reliable websites. Google Forms could also be used for longer responses and setting homework. So it could be used in graphic design, where learners are asked to write a paragraph about why Quentin Blake is recognised and creditable within the discipline of illustration. It could also be used to link a website and interactive media and ask learners to identify the associated techniques and processes of the website or product. And with any of our V Cert subjects, it could also be useful in teaching learners a framework for the evaluative behaviours. For example, creating a series of step-by-step questions for the learners to answer, which in turn helps the learners understand the evaluation process. InsertLearning.com is a Chrome extension that allows you to insert content onto any web page and share this with your learners. You can highlight text, add questions, discussion boxes, post-it notes, and so much more. Let's say for art and design, you can add boxes under certain pictures for discussion about colour, form, space, and texture within a picture. Or have your learners use Insert Learning, where they have to add post-it notes under each picture describing the visual language and share the page with you. For interactive media, it could be used for analysis and feedback of an interactive media product where learners can share their opinions as ongoing formative peer reviews. Padlet.com is best described as an online bullet board, and you can choose from many different layouts. The shelf could be useful if you want to put images, links, videos, and more into different categories or headings. And with a free account, you can make up to 3 Padlets, and this was correct as of June 2021. For engineering, you could put links to videos or sites for learners to use for revision or homework. Learners can have discussions on there, or you could get them to include links to the Google Form quizzes you had them make, or their web pages with Insert Learning content, or just have the learners make their own Padlet and share it with you. In business and enterprise, you could set up a starter task for learners to list entrepreneurial characteristics and skills, and then use this as a basis for further discussion and question and answer. Again, with any of the V Cert subjects, you could use Padlet for the upload of ongoing learner practical work, allowing for collaboration and feedback. Padlet could also be a resource for a presentation of some assessed elements, for example in music technology, where learners must understand the musical elements of a chosen style. Or in performance skills, where learners must understand the roles, responsibilities, skills and qualities associated with performance roles within the performance industry. Now, screen capture and recording technology is becoming more and more popular, and there are many options available, but I'm going to talk about Vidyard because it is a Chrome extension. There is no time limit on recordings. There is no limit on the number of recordings you can have. You can share the video via a link. You can edit videos. Videos can be embedded into other websites, and it captures video view counts. The only limitations are that you can't download the video and you are limited to a maximum of 5 embedded videos. An example of usage might be for business and enterprise, where learners record their own presentation on a company, or for a practice synoptic project, or how to use Excel for making graphs. This video can then be shared with others via a link. So for example, it could be copied into your Padlet site as part of their homework. Vidyard could also be useful in capturing evidence of software use and for verbal commentary for learners who prefer this to writing. Why not experiment with capturing verbal commentary and music? Or you could also use Vidyard to demonstrate the use of software, so for example CAD software, to your engineering learners. Now with this online tool, I just want to be clear here that we're certainly not encouraging fake text messaging, but more that FakeTextcom is more of an engagement tool than anything else. And this website allows users to make images that look like text messages. It could be used for discussion of the pros and cons, where learners must discuss two sides of an argument, or a text exchange between two literary characters or historical figures, or summarising learning with a back and forth question and answer. For performance skills, it could be a text exchange between Romeo and Juliet, or writing a story or a script via text message. For music technology, it could be used for sharing lyrics or performance notes. Okay, now this slide shows some of the answers that you provided as part of the registration process for this webinar. And I have used a free online tool called Word It Out to create this simple word cloud. And as you can see, the use of Teams was the most popular answer, closely followed by Google Classroom. There were also some other interesting suggestions, some of which I've not heard of either, so I do hope you'll feel comfortable to discuss these in more detail when we go to the open discussion part of this webinar. But before we do engage in open discussion, there were also some suggestions on how these online tools can be embedded into your teaching practice. So some of the examples including using them for live teaching, combining face-to-face teaching with independent learning, remote teaching and the running of online lessons, demonstrating and the development of lessons, giving verbal feedback quickly, plenary quizzes, giving feedback, organising e-portfolios of work and using it as a vehicle for submitting work, demonstrating editing techniques and developing composition, sharing resources and checking understanding, and the fact that every child has an iPad and the use of computers. However, some did say that they are unable to use online teaching tools due to insufficient equipment. So is it possible that you could utilise the learners' phones? Perhaps. Does anyone else have any suggestions then that they wouldn't mind sharing when we get to the open discussion? So at this point, I think it's a good point to pause just to say that I've provided a brief overview of some of the online teaching tools and applications that are currently available and provided some examples of how they can be used to assist with delivery and assessment of the V Cert Technical Award qualifications. And as sharing is caring, I'm now going to take the opportunity to unmute everyone so we can openly discuss and share ideas on how you could use these online tools, both the ones that I've gone through and the ones that you've suggested, and how you can embed them into your own teaching practice across the V Cert subjects. Also, please do feel free to share any other online tools and applications that you use and how you embed them into your teaching, learning and assessment. Helen, hi.
Yeah, hi. I've just got a question with regards to Google Forms. So we use Teams and we use the Forms section on Teams. We use Google alongside Teams, or how would that work sort of independently? And are there any merits in Google versus the Forms quizzes that we can do on Teams?
Okay, that's a very good question, and I'm going to say very honestly, I'm not no IT expert, so I'm not entirely sure of what the answer would be. Just for clarification, have you got both platforms and you want to try and use them together?
Yeah, so I'm unsure as to whether I actually have access to Google Forms as such, because we do run off on Teams. So
right. Well, Google Forms is actually internet based.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so you could use it. I can definitely confirm that you can use them separately, but in terms of using them together, that's something that I would need to go away and find out for you. Is that all right?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah, and I think, to be fair, the merit of actually using them together, if Teams is your main platform, if you could be using Google Forms for certain activities within your lessons, if then they can be inputted somewhere, for future reference or for any other reason that for the learners to use, then I think that would be a really good idea.
Yeah.
So I think, yeah, certainly something I will look into. Can they be used together interchangeably? Is that what you're asking, Helen?
Yeah, it is basically.
Yeah.
On some of your feedback that you showed on that Google Forms, that's far more intricate than I would suggest that we can do currently on the Teams.
Right, on Teams. Okay. Well,
So
certainly.
Just open it up to better feedback.
Yeah, sure, exactly. And when I was using the Google Classroom, we didn't have the platform of Teams, so we used Google Classroom, and obviously Google Classroom goes a lot better with Google Forms because it's the same. Yeah. But it's certainly, if you can use Google Classroom and Google Forms maybe alongside Teams. Again, it's something it's a good question, a very good question. I don't know if anyone else is on the webinar that perhaps can answer that. But that's okay if you don't know. Helen, what I'll do is I'll look into that and get back to you. If you could just I'll have your email address in the registrations. Is that all right?
Yeah, that's brilliant. Thank you very much.
No problem. Any other questions from anyone? Or anything that they'd like to share with the things that they do? Obviously, I only covered a very few of the online tools and applications that are out there, and it's a very, whistle-stop tour. The best thing to do with these tools is to have a play around with them, and see what other functionalities they've got. I know some that I've used in the past, Kahoot, I think, which was mentioned as part of the registration questions. Kahoot's also a good one to use. We've also created apps. I don't know if anyone's tried using app software to help, maybe it might help with synoptic projects. I know we've created fitness programs and stuff via the use of apps. Hi, Helen.
Yeah, hi. My only other question is, how long does it take, do you think, to set up all this? Because obviously there's a time element, isn't there, in creating everything? And are there some quick wins? Are there certain platforms? I mean, I've used Mentimeter quite a lot, actually.
Yeah, good.
I've used things like Padlet and the iFake looks great, but actually, in reality, what sort of preparation time am I looking to be able to do that?
Any particular online tool you're referring to, or?
Yeah, well, I was looking specifically, as I say, I haven't investigated any of these, but certainly Padlet was looking as one that would have been interesting, and the FakeTextcom that you showed up, would be great for conversations, because we're sort of business. It would be lovely conversations to have between customer and maybe customer service.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
Business manager applying for finance with a bank or something like that. Now, I appreciate text messaging isn't necessarily the format that you would use, but actually it's something that the students can really access because they understand it.
Yeah. And it's easy to maybe start it with the iFit, to get them used to, writing what they might say or using text, but then taking that and lifting it out for a more extended type of activity, where then the next task might be then to articulate it in a more role play type situation.
Yeah. So as I say, it's really, what sort of preparation do you have to do for these?
Okay. I'll be honest, I've not used FakeTextcom. That is certainly new. I've not been out of teaching that long, and that's something that I didn't know about when I was only teaching a couple of years ago. So that's very new. So I won't be able to answer that. However, with the Padlet, that is very easy, very limited, minimal time to set up. You'll need an account, and very minimal time to actually create your Padlets. And the beauty is as well, you get to save them. So you can potentially use them to, if you've got maybe double lessons and you just want to use a different class, you can actually use the template that you've created, but then with a blank wall. So Padlet is very minimal in terms of setup and maintenance. What was the other one? I think, was it Padlet and, was it just Padlet and iFake?
Yeah. Okay.
I would like to think as well that the FakeTextcom is pretty much the same. I think the whole point of the online tools is that they're not very onerous. I know that when I tried that iCloud software this morning to put in the responses, that didn't take long either. Some of them you do need, own accounts, but the Word one that I used didn't need any kind of logins. You could literally just insert your words and press create, and then I took a screenshot.
Yeah.
So I would like to think that the whole idea of these online tools and applications are to speed things up a lot and
isn't they quick?
Yes, and make it a little bit quicker. Yes, to prepare, create, and plan them into your lessons so you can use them.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. I think just one point to note there as well, though, is that it depends how comfortable you feel in using the technology. And I can say from personal experience that when, you know, Google Classroom came about a good few years ago, I was a little bit, oh, there's lots to learn, but actually it was a really straightforward platform to use and get used to. You know, it was quite simplistic. And I thought maybe at this time of year that might be the best time to kind of introduce this kind of topic, so you can have a bit of a play around, maybe, you know, and it'd be more fun rather than worrying that you've got to get your lesson plan for the next day or the next week, you know, and have a play around with a few of these things. There's so many other things out there. We could spend a lot of time going through all the different ones, and that's why I thought it'd be useful to have a kind of discussion kind of forum so people could bring on board what they said, you know, what they use maybe, and I'm sure there's loads out there that I'm not even aware of. So I don't know if anyone else is. Helen, are there any more that you use that you'd like to share?
So certainly we've used Kahoot in the past.
Yeah.
Students definitely love Kahoot.
They do.
I would,
yeah.
For our subjects, you just have to be a bit careful with Kahoot in the sense of just make sure that the not all the quizzes are actually accurate, maybe for your particular course. So you just got to be a bit careful that you edited those. But Kahoot definitely is a really good favourite with students. And as I say, I'm really moving into Mentimeter quite a lot to do a lot of AFL with. So we'll do sort of the word clouds on there, but equally I'll use, say, maybe the scales as a plenary, especially if I'm looking for just to see how students are you know, taking on board what they've learnt, so that I can get a measure for how confident they are, maybe if it's a revision session or something like that, to see how confident they are. But yes, lots still out there, but I just haven't really sort of ventured into it. So as you say, taking the summer will be benefit.
And that's what I was hoping. So, you know, I know I was like, as a teacher, the summer was, you're not maybe in the classroom, but you're thinking about all the new things that you can get your head around, and, you know, upon reflection, what would you do different? And, you know, a lot of that was like, what else can we use? You know, how else can we engage these young people? Certainly just Kahoot, I totally agree. Kahoot was a very popular online tool that was used a lot in the lessons, and I agree that you really do have to be careful with the accuracy of some of them, because the beauty is you can actually download some existing ones, but you can also create your own, and the students can actually create it. Once I got the students to create their own Kahoot, you know, a bit of a peer activity where we had a topic, it might have been like, say, for revision, and I got them to create their own Kahoot, and then they did it with the class, you know, so a bit of that way then they were testing their own knowledge and revising, but then also testing their peers' knowledge as well, so made it a bit more fun, a bit more competitive. But yeah, certainly just be careful with the accuracy of some of the questions. I think I found out the hard way and ended up saying, well, I was just testing you, what is the right answer? So yeah, just be careful of that one. Is anyone else would like to share any other online tools, or got any questions about any of the tools that I have discussed briefly today? I do appreciate that it is a very quick overview of these tools, but essentially it's more of a kind of plug and play type thing where you don't be afraid to just have a play around with them, and you know, and there's some really good guides out there on YouTube. You know, you can also have a look if you're unsure about how to set these things up. Well, I'm just going to give it a few more seconds just to see if anyone else wants to ask any more questions, because I appreciate, you know, time is precious, and if there are no other questions, there's no need to stay. Okay, well, I don't think there's any more questions coming through. So what I'd like to do then, just before we kind of end the webinar, is I just want to run the second poll to see now how confident you are feeling now with online teaching tools and embedding them into your practice, and whether that's. So at this point then, we are approaching, we have now reached the end of the webinar, and I do hope that you found it useful and you'll take away a few ideas to try out, because as I said, you know, that's probably the best way to do it, is to just have a play around. And there are so many more functions available with these online tools and applications that I didn't go into. So like I said, the best thing to do is just have a play around with them. Obviously, if you do have any further questions, then please do get in touch with me directly using my email at kellyjohnson@ncfe.org.uk, or if I'm unavailable, our general email is provider.development@ncfe.org.uk. And in the meantime, I'm just going to put the reference links that I mentioned during this webinar Obviously, I appreciate you can't click on them, and if you do want these slides so you can use them to click on the references, that I can do that, just let me know in the question box. But these are some of the key web links for you to refer to if you do require information and a bit more support. If you do have any questions, then please feel free to stay on the webinar. I don't mind staying on for the remaining time. If you don't have any questions, then please feel free to leave the webinar. And when you do leave, I'd really appreciate if you could complete the short evaluation to help me make any future improvements and/or changes to the service and support we provide. And thanks again. And on behalf of everyone at NCFE, take care, stay safe, and have a lovely summer.